Order, and I'm going to call Senator Patterson, who's been waiting very patiently. Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Watt. Senator Watt, I listened very carefully to your 2-minute statement just before question time, and it is not clear from me what you have said and what the Minister for Immigration has said today, whether or not the government will be releasing any of the other 92 people affected by this decision before or after the High Court has handed down the reasons for its decision. Which is it, what you told the Senate yesterday, which is that no one else will be released until the High Court has handed down its decision, or what the Minister for Immigration said today, which is the government will now begin the process of releasing those other 92 people?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Patterson. In fact, thank you, Senator Patterson, for giving me the opportunity to correct the misrepresentation of my remarks yesterday in question time that you've engaged in. I was very clear, and I invite anyone to have a look at the Hansard of yesterday's question time to see what I actually said on this matter, rather than how Senator Patterson has chosen to twist my words in the media today. And again, I refer Senator Patterson to the statement that I made just prior to question time, so that everyone was in a position to understand the latest developments on this significant decision. It is obviously a significant decision, and as I said in my 2-minute statement, all Australian governments are bound by decisions of the High Court. The decision was only handed down a couple of days ago, and we have been acting quickly to interpret that decision, bearing in mind that reasons for the decision have not yet been provided by the High Court. But I refer, in broader answer to Senator Patterson's question, he seems to be aware that Minister Giles issued a statement early this morning providing a further update on this matter, and I'll read it to the chamber. The government notes the High Court ruling on November the 8th in NZYQ against the Minister for Immigration. We are considering the implications of the judgment carefully and will continue to work with authorities to ensure community safety is upheld. The plaintiff has been released as ordered by the High Court. Other impacted individuals will be released, and any visas granted to those individuals will be subject to appropriate conditions, and that is what is occurring. Any further statements or any further announcements about releases will obviously be made in due course. But the fundamental point here is that we are already complying with the High Court's decision in relation to the plaintiff. The minister has made clear his intentions regarding other individuals who may be affected by the decision, and as I say, other announcements will be made in due course.
Senator Patterson, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Senator, yesterday in the Senate you said in response to a question from Senator McKim, we are not a government that acts on decisions that haven't had the reasons released. So which is it? Will any of these people be released prior to the High Court handing down their decision, or, consistent with what you said yesterday, will they only be released after the High Court has handed down the reasons for its decision?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Watt.
Yeah, well, Senator Patterson can choose to twist my words in whatever way he wants to make a political statement. That's entirely his right. It is politics, and if Senator Patterson wishes to play politics with this important matter, then that's a matter for him. I repeat the statement from the Minister for Immigration this morning that the plaintiff has now been released, and as I said in my 2-minute statement, he has been released subject to very strict conditions. And they include he has been put on a bridging visa with strict conditions. Those conditions include the requirement.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Patterson.
On direct relevance, point of order of direct relevance, I did not ask about the plaintiff. I asked about the other 92 people and when they will be released. Will it be now or after the High Court hands down its reasons?
The minister is being relevant. Senator Patterson, and I'll continue to listen carefully. Minister.
Well, as I say, I refer to my previous answer, which referred to the minister's statement this morning, which said that the plaintiff has been released as ordered by the High Court, and other impacted individuals will be released, and any visas granted to those individuals will be subject to appropriate conditions. The conditions that have been applied to the plaintiff following his release include the requirement to report to the Department of Home Affairs, to notify the minister of changes to his address or personal details, restrictions on industries of employment, and a range of other strict conditions.
Senator Patterson, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Minister, some of the people who will now be released have been convicted of serious, violent and sexual offences. How many of them have been assessed by a court to be of a moderate or high risk of reoffending?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Watt.
Well, again, President, all of these matters are being worked through by the minister as we speak and have been ever since the High Court handed down its decision. We have made very clear from the moment this decision was handed down that this government regards community safety as paramount in all cases, and especially in relation to the cases that we're talking about here. We are considering the implications of the High Court judgment carefully, and we will continue to work with authorities to ensure that community safety is upheld. The government will use all available powers to keep the community safe, and will consider all legislative and regulatory options.
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Patterson.
Madam President, on direct relevance, the minister did not even come near my question of how many have been assessed by the courts to be of moderate or high risk of reoffending.
Minister Wong, did you have, thank you, Senator Patterson. The minister's finished his contribution. Senator Stewart.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. The Albanese Labor government made a commitment to the Australian people at the last election that it would strengthen Medicare and address the problems left behind by the 9 years of reckless mismanagement and neglect under the Liberals and Nationals. Can the Minister please provide an update on how the Albanese Labor government is strengthening Medicare and helping Australians get access to medical care when they need it?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and thank you to Senator Stewart, who is committed, like all on this side, to a strong Medicare system and to bulk billing. Quite different, of course, to those who we face opposite. And it is this side of the chamber that is delivering historic investments in Medicare and health, the largest investment in bulk billing in the history of Medicare. We're in the history of Medicare, which came into effect last week. The largest investment in bulk billing in the history of Medicare, which came into effect last week. The rollout of urgent care clinics, which are a bulk-billed walk-in service 7 days a week for extended hours, and making medicines cheaper, cutting the cost of PBS medicines for all Australians and supporting medical staff. And what we know from history, what we know from form, what we know from values is that it is only Labor which can be trusted to protect Medicare. Because what we know about those opposite is this: a shameful legacy of cuts, a shameful legacy of mismanagement in Australia's healthcare system, deliberately ran down Medicare, deliberately ran down general practice. Mr Dutton, in his first budget as Health Minister, tried to abolish bulk billing altogether and make every single Australian pay the GP tax every time they visited a doctor. And when we blocked that infamous GP tax in this chamber, Mr Dutton started a 6-year freeze to Medicare rebates.
Senator Davey.
It's unsurprising that they want to interject. 6-year freeze to Medicare rebates. Remember that any time they come in here and complain about healthcare, their shameful record, ripping billions out of general practice, making it harder and more expensive to see
Senator
a doctor.
Wong. Senator Stewart's first supplementary.
Thank you, President, and I thank the Minister for that response and for outlining the appalling work of those opposite and the exceptional work of the Albanese Labor government has done to strengthen Medicare. I have seen a number of urgent care clinics open in the recent weeks. Can the Senator please provide an update on urgent care clinics?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Well, we know that when we came to government it had never been harder or more expensive to see a GP. We know that bulk billing was in sharp decline after a 6-year freeze to Medicare rebates and 9 years of cuts and neglect. So in addition to the $6.1 billion to strengthen Medicare and make it see a doctor, we, of course, are also ensuring more broadly the system is improved. And we have seen the Albanese government's Medicare urgent care clinics opening around the country, making it easier for Australians to see a doctor. We had just recently a second urgent care clinic open in Marion, in my home state of South Australia in Adelaide. Senator Birmingham and Senator Ruston, you should go down and have a look. It'll help patients get help faster and ease pressure on the nearby Flinders Medical Centre, where about 30% of presentations are for non-urgent or semi-urgent care. As Stephen Duckett said, the legacy left by Liberal health ministers— I'll have to come back to this quote.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Stewart.
Thank you, President. I note the minister mentioned changes to bulk billing which came into effect last week and will improve the lives of 5 million children and their families and 7 million pensioners and other concession card holders. Can the minister please outline what impact these changes will have and why this boost to bulk billing was so desperately needed?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister.
Thank you. Well, Senator Stewart, the reason it was so needed is because, as Mr Duckett told us, the legacy left by Liberal health ministers Dutton, Lee and Hunt, Duckett, is a Medicare scheme sorely in need of repair because of the slow erosion of the value of rebates and the failure to respond in any meaningful way to change circumstances. Any meaningful way. Well, our record investment means it's easier for 11 million Australians, including kids, pensioners and other concession card holders, to see a doctor, the largest investment in bulk billing in the 40 years of Medicare history. No amount of you saying it's not true makes it so, Senator Ruston. You see, we invest in Medicare and you don't, because we believe in Medicare and you don't. It's as simple as that.
Minister,
the College of General Practice says this is a game changer.
Please resume your seat. Senator Ruston, I am going to ask you to withdraw those remarks. I'm not going to repeat them.
I withdraw.
Thank you,
remarks.
Senator Ruston. Minister, please continue.
This is a game changer, to use the words of the College of General Practice, and stands in stark contrast to Mr Dutton and his failed record and GP tax.
Time has expired. Senator Cadell.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Agriculture, Senator Watt. Minister, I refer to National Farmers Federation unprecedented Keep Farmers Farming campaign against the Labor government's anti-farming policies, including the impact of Labor's renewable energy policy on productive farmland and farmers' rights. How many hectares of productive agricultural land will be impacted through the construction of 28,000 kilometres of additional pole and wires under Labor's policy?
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Cadell. I am familiar with the National Farmers Federation campaign to keep farmers farming, and I had quite a bit to say about that campaign a couple of weeks ago. I'd be very happy to share my speech with you, Senator Cadell, and I suspect, Senator Cadell, you would probably agree with a fair bit of what I had to say in that speech, because you're a sensible man, Senator Cadell. Unlike your colleagues, but credit where credit's due, Senator Cadell. And you shine a light that the rest of the National Party could follow. I promise to address your question, but what I will say also is that in the speech that I gave the National Farmers Federation conference, I made the point that while, of course, every peak lobby group will always find points of disagreement with the government of the day, and we certainly remember that Mr Littleproud, the now Nationals leader, used to call the National Farmers Federation ignorant. What was the other? Sideline critics. So, you know, there's a history of governments not getting along with the NFF at all times, but this government has delivered on so much of what the NFF has asked for. Sustainable biosecurity funding. Senator Farrell, you might know a little bit about restoration of trade with China, which has delivered $6 billion of exports of agriculture to China, just as the NFF called for and every farmer in Australia was calling for. And that's not to mention the other markets we've opened as well. But, Senator Cadell, you do raise a serious issue, and that is the competition for land and indeed sea that we do see between different uses, agriculture, fisheries industries and renewable energy. And our government, unlike the former government, is taking these issues seriously and is trying to build a framework that allows for the coexistence of these industries going forward. Now, we know, and Senator Cadell, you've highlighted examples where particular energy companies haven't done the right thing when it comes to consultation with landholders, and that's exactly why we have a review of consultation processes underway at the moment.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cadell, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister for Climate Change and Energy stated in September last year that Australia will need to install 22,000 solar panels every day and 40 wind turbines every month by 2030 to reach the 22% renewable target. how many hectares of productive agricultural land will be impacted by constructing those solar panels and wind turbines?
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister.
Thank you, Senator Cadell. I think you wouldn't expect me to have that level of detail to hand, but we know. You okay there? You're going to blow a foo-foo valve, Senator Canavan. We could get you a new foo-foo valve through the renewable energy, a renewable foo-foo valve, maybe.
Senator Watts, direct your comments to the chair. Order. Order. Senator Canavan. Minister, please continue and direct your answer to the chair.
Thank you, President. But we certainly acknowledge that renewable energy infrastructure will impact on a significant amount of land within Australia, and that is to generate the kind of clean, cheaper energy that our country needs, including our farmers. Now, what I would also say, though, is that I can introduce you to plenty of farmers around Australia who have actually developed new income streams as a result of hosting renewable energy on their farmland, and that is helping them diversify their income streams so that they're protected in times of drought and in other times when markets fall. So this isn't all a one-way equation. We know that we've got to have good consultation practices, but we want farmers to be able to make money.
Senator Cadell, second supplementary.
Minister, do you support the National Farmers Federation call for a mandatory code of conduct for transmission projects?
Minister.
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Well, of course, all of these matters are exactly what Mr Andrew Dyer, the Energy Infrastructure Commissioner, is currently consulting about. I've encouraged Senator Colbeck, and I think I might have mentioned it to you as well, Senator Cadell, to take up the opportunity to meet with Mr Dyer, because we know we're having an argument about a Senate inquiry. Well, that's fantastic that you've taken up that opportunity that we suggested you do, and that is the way to resolve exactly these issues going forward. I will point out that there are members of the opposition who have supported the building of new infrastructure as well. Back in March 2022, when he was then a minister, Mr Taylor, Angus Taylor, said that the development of interconnectors and transmission is critical to bringing new generation capacity into the energy system. I wonder where he thought that was going to be built. Was that going to be built in the sky or somewhere like that? And of course, Mr Taylor said that it had to shore up reliability and affordability across state borders. These are important issues that we get right. We want to do them in consultation with the sector, and I'd be pleased to work with you on that.
Senator Faruqi.
Thank you, President. My question is to Minister Wong. Minister, the Pacific nations are on the front line of the climate crisis, and they will be overwhelmed by the resulting storms, floods, and rapid collapse of access to food and water. Hundreds of thousands of Pacific people will be displaced by climate disasters, or they will die. And the Labour government has refused to stop the extraction and expansion of fossil fuels. Leaders, former leaders and people across the Pacific have made it clear that Labour needs to stop pushing for more coal and gas. And yet the Prime Minister has fronted up to the Pacific Islands Forum with more coal and gas. No amount of money to the Pacific will repair the damage of Australia's Labour government's climate bombs like Beetaloo, Pilliga Narrabri and the Burrup Hub. Will the government commit to no more coal and gas projects?
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Before I call the minister, I'm going to ask Senator Ayres and Senator Canavan to stop their interjections across this chamber. It is Senator Faruqi's question, and she has the right. Senator Ayres, Senator Canavan, I've called both of you to order. That is what I expect. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and Senator Faruqi. What I would say to you is, in the time since we've come to government, we have done an enormous amount to engage with and listen to our Pacific members of our Pacific, the Pacific family and our Pacific neighbours. And I have visited every member of the Pacific Island Forum, a number more than once. The Prime Minister has made it a priority to ensure he attends the Pacific Island Forum leaders meeting. I have to say, despite criticism from those opposite, because we understand our responsibility as a member of the Pacific family and our obligation to work with them on climate and on many other issues. it is the case that climate change is the #1 national security priority. But what I would say to you is it's an unfortunate domestic political angle to suggest that somehow we go to the Pacific Island Forum with anything less than an understanding of what is being sought, an understanding of how important climate change is to us, but also particularly to the Pacific Island nations who are vulnerable, and an understanding of what we as a government have to do to transition the Australian economy. That's what we have to do. Well, you can shake your head, but unfortunately there is no switch that transforms a largely fossil fuel dependent. I understand you want to make a political point from the end of the chamber, but there is no switch that makes a transition to renewable energy, and we have to do the hard yards. And we'd like you to join us, hard yards and actually transitioning, but you're not interested in joining us. You're interested in differentiating. And we all in here understand what you are doing. What we will do is transition our economy.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Faruqi, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Australia wants to host the UN Climate Conference in 2026 in partnership with the Pacific. This requires Australia to be a genuine partner to the Pacific, which should mean an immediate stop to the expansion of coal and gas, which are the things putting lives, livelihoods and homes of our Pacific neighbours at risk. Anything less is greenwashing and hypocrisy. How can the Labor government bid to host COP unless it commits to abandoning its plans to expand fossil fuels?
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Minister Wong.
I do find it interesting that Senator Faruqi's position appears to be unless we agree with her, we're hypocrites. That appears to be it. Unless we agree with you, we're hypocrites. Well, you know, you're not the ultimate arbiter of the truth, Senator Faruqi. You are not the ultimate arbiter of the truth. That is the reality.
Minister Wong. Senator Waters.
Thank you, President. Point of order. That is a clear reflection on Senator Faruqi and should be withdrawn.
Order. Order across the chamber.
The Greens political party seems to believe if people don't agree with them that somehow that makes the people who don't agree with them hypocrites or insincere. We are not. We are sincere, but unlike you, we recognise that it's not just a motion in the Senate or a speech, it's the hard yards of transforming an economy which has been fossil fuel dependent, and it has, and we have benefited from that, but we now have to change, and that is not easy. And as I have explained to the many colleagues I have met with over the Pacific, we know the change that we have to require, and we are committed to it. And we are committed to it, and we are genuine.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Faruqi, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Global North's unfettered consumption of resources and addiction to fossil fuels has caused immense damage to the Global South. It's been a year since the Loss and Damage Fund was agreed to by countries, including Australia. Yet Labor has not committed any contribution to the Loss and Damage Fund, and the Climate Infrastructure Partnership announced today has nothing to do with it. When will the government make a commitment of what it will contribute to the Loss and Damage Fund?
Thank you, Senator Faruqi.
I make the point because there was quite a preamble there, a very interesting preamble in terms of some of the language used. I would make the point that I have made for years on this issue, which is as long as people are pointing their finger at other countries rather than taking action themselves, and as long as the climate negotiations bifurcate around that or shatter around that, then we will not get what humanity needs. It is the case that there are many countries who have benefited greatly from their reliance on fossil fuel, and Australia is one of them, and we have contributed to what we have now. We also know going forward that there are a great many developing countries who also are, if not the largest, and amongst the largest emitters. In other words, we all need to do something rather than blame each other, and that is the constructive approach we will take. We will take to the climate negotiations and to the work we're doing with Pacific partners.
Senator Sterle.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Senator Farrell. What actions is the Albanese government taking to ensure a strong Australian resources sector, and how is the government ensuring Australia's energy security and reliability by supporting essential decarbonisation efforts?
Thank you, Senator Farrell. Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thanks, Senator Sterle. You come from a great resources state, and I know you've got a great interest in this sector. Today, the Western Australian has reported that billions— Western Australian, of course, is a Western Australian newspaper, fine newspaper— billions of dollars of investment in WA's gas industry are at risk as the Senate holds up legislation. These actions by the Liberals and the Nationals are nothing short of astonishing. Faced with the choice of supporting investment certainty in carbon capture and storage, the Liberals and the Nationals chose to side with the Greens. The International Energy Agency, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the Climate Change Authority have all said that carbon capture and storage will play an important role in helping achieve net zero. We believe in climate action, but the Liberals and the Nationals continue to bury their heads in the sand. Like every aspect of energy policy, those opposite comprehensively fail on the issue of emissions reduction. So, what do those opposite believe? Do they support regulatory certainty, or do they not? Do they want affordable and reliable energy, or don't they? No, the answer is no. The actions of those opposite are putting Australian projects at risk. Australian projects at risk. This means they are putting Australian jobs at risk. The Liberals and the Nationals talk about investment, but they don't believe in it.
Time for answering has expired. Order across the chamber. Order. Senator Sterle, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, why is it important for the government to enable a strong investment climate for decarbonised LNG supply chains?
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister.
Thank you, President. Thank Senator Sterle for his first supplementary question. Well, this government's been working diligently with industry and our key trading partners to rapidly decarbonise LNG supply chains. There are deep pools of capital available in Korea, in Japan and elsewhere, with a strong appetite to invest in carbon capture and storing projects right across Australia, even in your home state. This is why it beggars belief that those opposite, when faced with the choice, refuse to act. They refuse to act. The Liberals and the Nationals have said that our efforts to promote regulatory certainty for carbon capture and storage are vitally important, but they fail to act. They fail to act. So, what do you actually believe?
Senator Sterle, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. What action could be taken to ensure more investment flows into projects, technologies and initiatives that support decarbonisation across resource supply chains, Minister? Because I am interested.
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Sterle for his second supplementary question. I can see everybody, their heads are down, I know, because except for Senator Cadell, the rest of them, their heads are down because they are ashamed. They are ashamed of the position that they are adopting. We have a suite of regulatory and legislative reforms.
Minister, resume your seat. Order. Senator Canavan, I've just called the chamber to order. That does include you. Senator Wong. Minister Farrell.
We have a suite of regulatory and legislative reforms that are helping to drive investment and regulatory certainty across the sector. We want to ensure our regulations and our legislation are fit for purpose and best practice for decarbonising our economy. The Liberals and the Nationals have a clear choice to make. Do they want
Senator
serious
Canavan.
investment to flow into this country to support carbon capture and storage projects, or do they not? I would have thought our trading relationship with Korea and with Japan was simply too important to be playing.
Time has expired. Perhaps Senator Ayres and Canavan might want to go outside and chat. Senator Wong. Senator Wong. Order. Order. Senator Wong. Order. Senator Birmingham. Order across the chamber. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Multicultural Affairs, Senator Watt. Does the government control the level of immigration into Australia?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. I note your interest all week in these matters of migration, and the short answer is that under governments of all persuasions, including those who are having a little chuckle over there at the moment, under governments of both persuasions, the immigration program in Australia is demand-driven. So that has been the case under this government and the former government as well.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Roberts.
Point of order, President, because it was a very simple, short question, needs a yes or no answer. That's it.
The minister is being relevant, Senator Roberts. I'll presume you've finished your answer, Minister Watt.
So, as I say, yeah, it's actually quite normal for ministers who represent others to look at their notes. Senator Canavan, we can't all be the genius that you are. You are a genius. I pay that, especially when you get into your dark web and your bunker and you dig out all those statistics. You're an absolute genius at that.
Minister Watt,
but we can't all be.
Minister Watt, resume your seat. Order. Order. Order across the chamber, but particularly on my left. Senator Ayres, you have a lot to say this afternoon. This is question time. Minister Watt, I'm asking you to refer your comments to me and not to particular senators. Please continue.
I know Senator Rennick was a bit offended by the fact that I singled out Senator Canavan as the only genius on the opposition and the only person who can get into the bunker and find statistics, because we know Senator Rennick's pretty good at that as well.
Just a moment, Senator Hughes. I haven't called you, and I haven't called you because the chamber was still disorderly. Senator Hughes.
President, you made very clear this week, and we've heard from those opposite of their deep offence. I'd like Minister Watt to withdraw a whole raft of his commentary and reflections on a number of senators over here, and his continual snarky, personal smears and vilifications.
Senator Hughes, if you want to raise a point of order about unparliamentary or personal language related to a senator, I need their name, at least. Senator Hughes, don't backchat once you're sitting down. You indicated that the minister had had a spray against a range of senators. I have no idea who that was. I'm not going to make it up or guess it. So unless you have some... Senator Hughes, it's not... You've raised the point of order. You haven't named a particular senator. You've indicated to me who in your view has made the offence, but you haven't said about which senator. Senator Hughes, resume your seat. Minister Wong.
Thank you. I think the difficulty through you, President, is it was a generalised proposition that the Senator was making. If there is a request to withdraw particular language that has just been said, right? Then you know, if that is the request, I'm sure that the minister. Oh, okay. I'm just saying that if a generalised proposition is a difficult one to respond to, if there is a request to, I'm trying to assist here. I'm really
Senator Birmingham. I'm
Sorry,
sorry. I thought you had finished, Senator Wong.
Thank you. I was just waiting. The proposition.
Did you wish to continue?
Thank you. There is a generalised complaint about Senator Watt saying things about a number of people. If the request is, I don't know what those are, but if the request is that—
Order.
If the request is that Senator Watt withdraw particular language that's just been used— I'm sorry?
Senator Scarr, Senator Scarr, no interjections.
All I'm saying is there's a request to recall— wow.
Senator Hughes.
I'm really trying. If there is a— If there is a request to withdraw particular language now, I would ask the President to call the Minister.
Senator Birmingham.
Thank you, President. President, I did just want to pick up on one part of your ruling there, which was to suggest it was necessary for the senator to name a particular senator who had been impugned. Odgers does make it clear that it is possible for groups of senators to be impugned or to have improper motives attributed to them by a senator, and that is also against standing orders.
That's correct.
It also, President, as you're well aware, it's not necessary always for a senator to make a point of order, and in the spirit of this week it would be helpful for strong proactive intervention if senators cannot restrain themselves to actually ask them immediately to withdraw. Preferably, they would restrain themselves, Senator Watt.
Just a moment. I haven't called you Senator Watt. I am going to respond to those points of order. I am not in the chamber all the time. That's the point that I made in the statement to the chamber yesterday. It is very difficult for me to ask a senator to withdraw when I don't know where that language has landed. I take your point, Senator Birmingham, that a slur can be made against a group of senators. That's not what Senator Hughes was implying. She indicated that— my understanding of what was indicated was that the minister had made, in Senator Hughes's view, a number of comments to senators throughout the week, not to a group of senators. However, I know that Senator Watt is always willing to own his behaviour, and I will, as Senator Watt— for the benefit of those interjections, a number of you are always willing, on both sides of the chamber, to withdraw. Some of you are not, but most of you are. So I am going to invite Senator Watt, if he thinks he has offended senators this week, to make a general withdrawal without making any comment to comments that you may or may not have uttered.
I make a general withdrawal.
Thank you.
I should continue. So thank you. So, Senator Roberts, the government does have a range of controls in place around the numbers of migrants coming into Australia, the categories of those migrants, whether they be international students or tourists, humanitarians, skilled workers. So the government does have a range of controls around the numbers and types of migrants who come into Australia. I think I know where you're going with this, Senator Roberts, because you have followed these issues all week, and I point out that we haven't really seen a lot of consistency from the opposition on matters of migration either, because what we do know is that, for instance, the now immigration spokesperson, the member for Wannon, when he was in government, he was saying things like, well, we need to get our international students back, we need to get our working holiday visa visa holders back.
Please resume your seat. Senator Roberts.
Point of order. That's not relevant to what I asked.
Well, I'm sorry. I'll bring you back to the question. Minister Watt, you've finished. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
Thank you. On the 15th of May, Treasurer Jim Chalmers told Australia that the level of net overseas migration is, quote, not something the government determines. Minister, is that a lie, given your government issues the visas and decides who comes to this country? Why are you letting immigration spiral out of control while hundreds of thousands of Australians are homeless?
Senator Roberts, I am going to ask you to rephrase that question.
Minister, is that misinformation, given your government issues the visas and decides who comes to this country? Why are you letting immigration spiral out of control while hundreds of thousands of Australians are homeless?
Thank you very much, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. Well, no, I reject the suggestion that the Treasurer has misrepresented the facts on this issue. It is a really important issue that Australia is dealing with at the moment. But, Senator Roberts, in answer to similar questions from you over the course of the week, I've pointed out a number of steps the government has taken to fix the fundamentally broken migration system that we inherited from the opposition, and in particular from the now Leader of the Opposition, Mr Dutton, who of course oversaw the migration system as the Minister for Home Affairs for a number of years. We've already scaled back the pandemic event visa. We're taking action about the working hours for international students, which has been a real draw card for international students coming to Australia. We've made all sorts of improvements to Home Affairs in terms of its processing of visa applications. And of course, when it comes to housing, as I've pointed out to you already, Senator Roberts, you and your colleagues had an opportunity to vote for more housing. You chose to vote against it.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you. How many net overseas immigrants will arrive in Australia this financial year?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister.
Well, Senator Roberts, again, I know that we've addressed this issue in previous answers, both in this chamber and in estimates, and the issues around the numbers of net overseas migrants is actually a matter that's handled by the Treasury. But I've already acknowledged in previous answers on these questions that post-COVID, when we had a couple of years of pretty much zero migration to Australia, it was always inevitable that there was going to be an increase in that migration as we had tourists coming back, as we had working holiday visa makers coming back, as we had skilled migrants coming back into the country. And that is exactly one of the reasons why our government is trying to fix the broken migration system that we inherited and trying to build more homes despite your opposition and that of the coalition.
Minister Watt. Senator Roberts.
Point of order. I asked the question, how many net immigration this year?
I think the Minister explained it. It is a question that should be directed to Treasury, and the Minister is answering it in his capacity. I'll ask him if he's concluded. You've finished? Thank you. Senator Rennick.
My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Farrell. I refer to the Minister's answer yesterday to Senator Birmingham, where he claimed not to have seen analysis of OEC data in the Australian Financial Review showing that Australians have experienced the biggest fall in living standards among advanced economies under Labor. Has the Minister since read the analysis, and can the Minister name a single advanced economy where real household incomes have fallen as much as Australia?
Thank you, Senator Rennick. Minister.
Thank you, President. And thank Senator Rennick for his question. I perhaps should have mentioned this yesterday in my answer, Senator Rennick, that of course one thing we know about the OECD is that it's now led by former leader in this place, former Senator Matthias Cormann, and my recollection of Senator Cormann, who very nice fellow.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Rennick.
Point of order, Chair, towards relevance. I'm not asking about who's running the OECD in terms of the bureaucratic organisation. I'm talking about the countries amongst it in a relative sense of the word.
Thank you, Senator Rennick. I'll draw the minister back to the question. Minister.
Thank you, President. But look, it is worth noting that, of course, when he was, I think it was in the finance portfolio. Minister
Farrell, I draw you back to the question. Thank you, Minister.
I've made my point, I suppose. After a decade of deliberate stagnation under the Liberals and Nationals, wages are growing at their fastest rate in about a decade. And while inflation does remain higher than we'd like, and of course we know why that is, because of the incompetent management of the economy by the former government, it has moderated from its annual peak in December quarter 2022 and its quarterly peak under the coalition in the March quarter
Minister Farrell,
of 2020.
please resume your seat. Senator Rennick.
Point of order on relevance, Chair. I actually asked had the minister read the analysis and if there was a country whose real household income had fallen as much as Australia.
I believe the minister is being relevant, but I will continue to listen carefully to his answer.
Thank you, President. Higher interest rates and higher inflation are putting pressure on people, and that's why our number one priority as a government is addressing inflation and the cost of living. We are rolling out $23 billion worth of cost of living relief, which is easing pressure on Australians at the same time as it helps to ease inflation in the economy. The ABS has
Minister
confirmed—
Farrell, please resume your seat. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, President. And President, point of order on direct relevance. There were two parts to Senator Rennick's question. One was whether he has read the analysis, and the other was whether he can name a single advanced economy where real household incomes have fallen as much as Australia. I don't believe the minister has confirmed whether he's seen the analysis, because he hasn't actually referenced it at all, nor has he identified whether he can name any country where people have been left as worse off over the last year as Australia.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. The question also referred to the OECD, to which the minister has responded, but I will remind him of your question, Minister.
And they didn't, with due respect, President, they didn't like my comments on the leadership of the OECD. But can I say this? We face
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Rennick, first supplementary.
The analysis of OECD data in the Australian Financial Review shows that Australians have experienced the biggest fall in living standards among advanced economies under Labor. Does the minister think it is acceptable for Australian real household incomes to have fallen faster than any other advanced economy?
Thank you, Senator Rennick. Minister Farrell.
No.
Senator Rennick, second supplementary.
Australia's inflation rate is growing faster than 15 members of the G20. And ABS data shows that domestic inflation is growing faster than trade-exposed inflation. Will the minister admit that falling real incomes is a Labor problem, not a global problem?
Thank you, Senator Rennick. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President. Well, I don't think Senator Rennick listened to my first answer, where I actually addressed what's happening with wages. And I know you don't like me going back to who's now running the OECD, but of course, when he was running finance in this country, Senator Cormann, he let the cat out of the bag. He let the cat out of the bag, and he made it very clear that a designed feature of your economic policies—
Minister Farrell, please. I'm waiting for silence, Senator Cash. I don't have you on your feet. I have Senator Rennick.
Thank you, Chair. Point of order on relevance yet again. I asked the question, was inflation a Labor problem and not a global problem?
I'll remind the minister of your question, Senator Rennick. Minister.
Thank you. Well, we all know why inflation is going up. In addition to the incompetent management under your government, Senator Rennick, which started the upward climb, because remember the first increase in interest rates was under your government. But look, there's a war going on in Russia, Ukraine. There's a war going there, yeah, and I will tell these people,
Minister,
we are
the time
looking
for
after
answering
you.
has expired. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, President. President, my question is to the minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. This week in the Senate, the vast majority of legislation passed were bills brought forward by Senators Lambie and Pocock. These 4 bills were passed without any voices against, and therefore without a division being called. The Labor Party did not oppose these 4 bills. Given Labor's support for these bills, will the government give a commitment to treat the Senate, and Senators Lambie and Pocock in particular, with appropriate respect, by allowing these bills to be debated and voted on in the House of Representatives next week?
I'm waiting for silence. Minister Wong.
First, I note, is this not Senator Babette's question? No, this is yours. Have you handed it to the Libs? Oh, now we know. we already knew.
Order.
I would just make the point, I'm interested to get a question on legislation from the Leader of the Opposition in the Senate. I'm interested to get a question on legislation from the Leader of the Opposition in the Senate, whose leadership is so fragile that he holds up a bill that he supports that is important for Santos in his hometown because Senator Canavan wants an inquiry and he lines up his people to vote with the Greens to prevent legislation he supports. I mean, that is the Senate legislation program. It's all about the internals of the Liberal Party and the National Party. That is all it's about. So, if you want to come in here and talk about the legislation program, can you explain to Santos, to South Australia, to the people? Yes, I'm not unsurprised.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator, just a moment, Senator Birmingham. I'll wait for silence across the chamber. Order. Senator McKenzie. Sorry, Senator Birmingham.
President, point of order. The question was very clearly about a bill, the industrial relations bills, that related and were moved by Senators Lambie and Pocock, not any other legislation before the Senate. And, of course, they were bills the government itself were too weak to even call a division over.
Senator Birmingham, the minister is being relevant. Minister Wong.
What was striking about the discussion before was I didn't actually see the other side disagreeing. No. Did you? I didn't really see the other side disagreeing because they know what is happening. Is you are voting with the Greens against legislation you support. You are voting with the Greens against legislation you support that Korea. Maybe those who care about national security should think about the fact that the governments of Korea and Japan have been asking us to pass the legislation. You're lining up with the Greens. You're lining up with the Greens. This is a party of government. Look what they have. Look at what they have become. Look at what you've become.
Order. 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 Senators. I have Senator Birmingham on his feet. There should be silence across the chamber. Senator Cash, I called you a number of times. Senator Cash, your interjections are disorderly. I called you to attention and you ignored that. I would ask you to respect my calling. Senator Birmingham. Order.
Thanks, President. Well, this week in the Senate, the government has failed miserably to manage its own legislative program. In 5 days, not a single government bill that wasn't non-contro has passed. Yet the government has not once asked for extra hours, nor extra sitting time, nor did it put to the coalition any cooperative proposal, just a guillotine, take it or leave it. Will the government come to the Senate next week with less arrogance and more willingness to show the give and take that has always been required and shown to get things done in this Senate?
Minister Wong.
Well, I'll make it to you now. I'll make it to you now. You give us extra hours and an agreement to pass the legislation and we'll keep sitting. I'll make it to you now. Because you know what you've been doing? You said no to Santos. You've said no to Woodside.
Senator Hume.
You said no. You've said no to Impex. You've said no to
Minister Wong.
You've said no to Korea. You've said no to Japan. You've said yes.
Wong. Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senators. Senator McKim. Order. Senator Patterson. Senator McKim, I have one of your senators on his feet. I know, Senator Wilson, I'm waiting for the chamber. Senators, Senator Green, Senator Canavan, you have been very disorderly today. I've called you a number of times. Order. 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 Thank you for waiting, Senator Wishwilson.
Right. Thank you, President. Just a point of order on I think Senator Wong is misleading the chamber by pointing out that there's a difference between the Liberal Party and the Labor Party on supporting fossil fuel companies. Is misleading the chamber.
Senator Wishwilson, please resume your seat. Order. Order. Senator Canavan, when you've finished. Minister Wong.
But I'm serious. And those opposite know why those opposite know why this led.
Order. Senator Canavan. Senator Canavan. And McKim. Senator Ciccone, that is really unhelpful as well. I'm waiting for order. I am appealing to senators to stop being disrespectful. If you have something to say, make a contribution at some other time, not question time. Minister Wong.
The reality is this question is a pathetic attempt to cover up the fact that the Leader of the Government in the Senate and Senator Cash as Deputy Leader have teamed up with the Greens against legislation they support in order to try and get Senator Canavan an inquiry. Enough said.
Just a moment, Senator Birmingham. I'll wait. Order. Order. Senator Wong. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, President. Well, it's taken 5 whole days for the government to come up with a proposal on how to get this bill through, demonstrating clearly it's been lacking leadership all week. Given it's 82 years since the government tried to function with only 4 Senate ministers, half of whom have been absent for most of the week, will the minister commit to ask the Prime Minister to promote some of the Labor senators languishing on the backbench? Perhaps Senator McAllister, who's done most of the work for the government this week, could replace the hapless Stephen Jones. There's one suggestion.
Senator Birmingham. Before I call the minister, I'm going to ask you to withdraw that reflection against Minister Jones.
I withdraw.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Minister Wong.
Well, what we do know, and look, I respect the position of the Australian Greens. They've had a consistent position on this legislation. Thank you for your assistance. And you know, political debate has many aspects.
Minister Wong.
Right?
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Order across the chamber. Senator Whish-Wilson, you are out of order, as are you, Senator McKim. Order. Minister, please continue. Minister, I've given you the call.
What we know, I respect but disagree with the position of the Greens. They've been consistent, but I do not respect a party of government that votes against something for 5 days in the Senate, then complains about it, votes against it, votes against the. Because they want an inquiry to shore up their internals. That's not how parties of government behave.
Senator Green.
My question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. This week, the Prime Minister is attending the Pacific Islands Forum's Leaders Summit. Can the Minister explain how the government is building a stronger and more united Pacific family and a peaceful, stable and prosperous region?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Green, and thank you for your interest in and engagement with our Pacific neighbours. I know how important it is to you and to the people you represent. And as you know, our government is investing in all arms of statecraft to build a peaceful, stable and prosperous region that requires a Pacific Island Forum equipped to face our shared challenges together. As I said, we've obviously travelled to every member of the PIF, listened to their priorities and are working to deliver for shared interests. We've boosted our investments in over 2 budgets in regional security cooperation, police increasing, labour mobility, climate and humanitarian response, sport, media and regional capability. We have delivered on our commitment to expand and improve the Pacific Australia Labour Mobility Scheme, with more workers in Australia than ever before. We've increased our investments in climate finance in the Pacific, for the Pacific, and will rejoin the Green Climate Fund, determined to ensure it delivers directly for our Pacific partners. We've increased our development assistance and we've doubled the Australia Infrastructure Financing Facility in the Pacific Grants component. Our investments will help our regional partners become more economically resilient, develop critical infrastructure and provide their own security so they have less need to call on others. And we have also enhanced our support for the Forum, the preeminent regional institution, to build a stronger and more united Pacific family and to deliver the 2050 strategy for the blue Pacific continent. And we have delivered a Pacific Engagement Visa, which will make a uniquely Australian contribution to building a stronger Pacific family.
Senator Green, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Can the minister explain what challenges we face in the region and why a peaceful, stable and prosperous Pacific is in Australia's interests?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Green. Well, we know that Australia lost a decade in the Pacific because of those opposite, because of the disrespect for the Pacific family. Who can forget Mr Dutton making jokes about water lapping at the door of the Pacific family? And we all remember how they dropped the ball. And unfortunately, they just haven't learned. Here, last month, those opposite tried to block the Pacific Engagement Visa, and now they're looking to block legislation that supports Pacific workers. Now, I know that Senators Birmingham and Patterson actually understand the challenges Australia faces in a more contested region. I know that they understand that Australia must work harder than ever to stay competitive in the region. But unfortunately, we see Senators Birmingham and Patterson being completely passive, standing up to the reckless Mr Dutton, completely passive in standing up for the national interest, and working to keep letting others fill the vacuum. The time for
answering has expired. Senator Birmingham.
If it's inappropriate to describe a member of the House of Representatives as hapless, is it also inappropriate to describe them as reckless?
I will ask Minister to withdraw. Minister Wong.
I'm happy to withdraw.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator Green, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Can the minister explain why the Pacific Islands Forum is central to advancing Australia's national interests?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Wong.
The Pacific Island Forum is where leaders come together to make decisions, including decisions on security in the Pacific family. It is a core national interest for Australia to show up. Now, Australia has not always been welcomed there with open arms. We all remember how Mr Morrison was received. But what is disappointing is that Mr Dutton recklessly wants to drag us back to those days. Today he's out there questioning whether the Prime Minister of Australia should be at the Pacific Islands Forum. Really? When Mr Dutton had the chance to make Australia more secure, he left us more exposed. He went around beating the drums of war, but you know what? He just surrendered in the Pacific. Just surrendered. And while he was beating his chest, he let our country get beaten to the punch. We are determined not to ever make that mistake.
Thank you. Senator Hughes.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Yesterday, when Senator Farrell was asked for a second time what the Labor government defined as mortgage stress, you interjected, "Why didn't you ask me?" So in that spirit, Senator, I ask again, what is the Albanese government's precise definition of mortgage stress?
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Minister Wong.
Well, as you might recall, Senator Hughes, I actually made sure I had the opportunity afterwards to say what I wanted to say, which is, unlike those opposite, we don't need definitions to understand how hard it is that Australians are doing, which is why we are focused on the $23 billion worth of cost of living measures that we have put in place, so many of which you opposed, that are about assisting Australian families. And I will just make this point, because there's been a lot of discussion about inflation, that the Statement of Monetary Policy that the RBA has released has confirmed what the ABS has previously said. Our cost of living measures have shaved 0.5 percentage point off inflation. You should listen to this, because remember what inflation was like under you, Senator Hume. Remember what inflation was like under you. The ABS has said that our cost of living measures shaved
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Hughes.
Point of order, please. If you could remind Senator Wong to direct her comments through the chair rather than screaming abuse at Senator Hume would be appreciated.
Senator Hughes, the minister is directing her comments appropriately. Minister Wong.
I did respond directly to Senator Hume, who was, I think, to be fair, being feisty towards me, and that's fine. I don't mind. I don't think it was abuse, and I certainly wouldn't want it to be perceived in that way. But I would make this point: the ABS has said that our cost of living measures shaved 0.5 percentage point off inflation in the September quarter. That was confirmed by the RBA again today. So I would make the point to those opposite: if you're serious about worrying about mortgage stress, if you're serious about cost of living, if you're serious about inflation, then you should have supported the measures that the government brought in.
Thank you, Senator Wong. And Senator Hughes, just before I come to your first supplementary, I remind you that a minister is entitled to respond to interjections, but your first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, I'm not sure there was a definition in there, since maybe you don't know either, but given the minister representing the Treasurer was unable to answer, despite being asked twice, can you confirm how many Australian households are currently experiencing mortgage stress, and how many more will as a result of this latest interest rate rise under Labor?
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Minister Wong.
We know that Australians are struggling, and we know that households are struggling, which is why we're so focused on doing what we are able to do in terms of cost of living measures and delivering the first budget surplus in 15 years to put downward pressure on inflation. And what I would say is this: given we know from the ABS and the RBA that the government's approach has shaved 0.5% off the inflation rate in the September quarter, I would say to Senator Hughes, if you care about inflation and interest rates, maybe you should make sure those opposites support the things the government is doing.
That's right. Senator Hughes, second supplementary.
Because Don doesn't know, no one else can say.
That's right, Senator Colbeck. So, despite the minister representing the Treasurer being asked this basic question yesterday and the day before, you still can't or won't confirm for the Senate the number of Australian families experiencing mortgage stress under your government. Will the Albanese Labor government take responsibility for its role in skyrocketing mortgage stress and apologise to those Australians?
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Minister Wong.
We will take responsibility as the government for doing everything we can to put downward pressure on inflation, which is why we brought into this chamber the measures to cap energy price rises, while we brought into this chamber bulk billing changes, while we brought into this chamber cheaper medicines, while we brought into this chamber a whole range of measures that you opposed. So anyone what I'd say to all Australians, we understand you are doing it tough, and we will continue to do all we can to try and ensure there is downward pressure on inflation and to assist on cost of living. But what we do know is that the Dutton opposition is the party of higher medicines, more expensive medicines, and higher energy prices.
Senator Grogan.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Senator Watt. This week has marked 1 year since someone declared that the government's Secure Jobs Better Pay workplace relations legislation would close down Australia. Who would say such a thing, Minister Watt? And can you confirm whether Australia has actually closed down?
Minister Watt.
Well, thank you, Senator Grogan, and it is my pleasant duty to advise
Senator
Australians that Australia has not closed down. And I wish all Australians a happy first anniversary, a paper anniversary, since someone, I don't know who, but someone said that Australia would close down due to the government's secure jobs, better pay, workplace relations laws. Now, you have to wonder, who would have such a doom and gloom attitude to Australian businesses' workers? Well, of course, it's the person who's got a lot to say over there right now, Senator Cash, the human hyperbole. We know we used to have Senator Hinch, the human headline, and now we've got Senator Cash, the human hyperbole.
Please resume your seat. Senator Hanson-Young.
Well, thank you, President. I know it is unbelievable to be able to think that I can't hear Senator Watt, but I can't hear Senator Watt. All of this. Can you please try and bring the temperature down a little
Senator
bit?
Hanson-Young, I have been trying for the last hour. I would think that today I have not been particularly successful, but I would remind the chamber once again that shouting out across the chamber is disorderly. Trying to shout louder than the minister answering the question is also disorderly, and it's disrespectful. I'd remind all senators for the last couple of questions to listen in silence. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. But it's no surprise that Senator Cash would say such a thing, because she's a member of the same coalition that said Labor would end the weekend. I don't know about you, but I'm quite looking forward to the weekend, and it's actually going to happen tomorrow. They said that Labor would kill off the backyard barbecue. I had a barbecue at my place last weekend. I don't know about yourselves. And, of course, Labor was going to deliver lamb roast that cost $100. That hasn't happened either. But Senator Cash is not alone in her blatant scaremongering from that side of the chamber, but it is sad that she has such a dim view of Australian businesses and workers. Because, as I say, 12 months on from that prophecy of doom from Senator Cash, it turns out that Australia is, in fact, still quite open. The sky hasn't fallen in, and in fact it's quite a nice spring day out there. I'd encourage you to go and experience it. But when you don't have actual policies, all you've got is hyperbole and over-egging. Now, Senator Cash is fond of saying the devil's always in the detail, so here's the detail. Unemployment under the Labor government at historic lows. Over 560,000 jobs created since the Albanese government was elected. Wages are moving again, up by an average of 3.6% compared to 2.1%.
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, President. President, I seek leave to move a motion to vary the hours of the Senate.
We're halfway through question times. The clerk's saying not.
He's seeking leave.
Birmingham, I'm sure you heard that, but I'm advised that you can't do it until Senator Grogan's series of questions has expired. Senator McKim. Senator McKim. Order. Senator Grogan, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister Watt, the Liberals and the Nationals have tirelessly worked to frighten business owners and workers regarding the government's workplace relation policies like secure jobs, better pay and closing loopholes. And only 1 year ago, Senator Cash claimed that the government's laws would take us back to the dark ages. Minister, is Australia back in the dark ages?
Thank you, Minister Watt. I would advise you to direct your answers to the chair.
Thank you, Senator Grogan. And, President, I'm surprised that Senator Birmingham wanted to protect Senator Cash from more examination of her statements, because we know that Senator Cash doesn't spend a lot of time protecting Senator Birmingham over that side of the chamber. But, of course, Senator Cash, I really hope that she had better luck on the Melbourne Cup this week, because all of her other predictions have been well and truly off the mark. Last year, she predicted the Secure Jobs Better Pay Bill would send Australia back to both the Dark Ages and the 1970s. I don't really know how it can do both. And, you know, as I've said before, I don't know about Senator Cash, but I haven't seen people running around in the chainmail from the Dark Ages or the flares from the 1970s. But according to Senator Cash, it was going to get us to both those places. And a year on, they're now dusting off the same old doomsday tales when it comes to our Closing Loopholes bill. Now, Senator Lambie made some interesting comments on the radio this morning that there are only 4 parts of this bill that those opposite are willing to support, and what that means is the coalition opposes the rest. They say no to protecting gig workers, no to
Senator Grogan, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister Watt, why does the coalition keep making wild claims to cover for them failing to protect workers, and why is it so important for all the measures in the Closing Loopholes bill to pass as soon as possible?
Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Well, I mean, it's beyond me why Senator Cash and the Coalition keep making wild claims about dark ages, empty supermarket shelves, Australia closing down, ending backyard barbecues, ending weekends, ending Christmas, ending April Fool's Day. It doesn't really matter what they say. They'll always make up a new claim. But as I say, the important point here is that Senator Lambie was on the radio this morning saying that there were only 4 parts of the government's closing loopholes bill that the opposition was prepared to support. And what that means is that the opposition continues to oppose protecting gig workers. They say no to introducing an industrial manslaughter offence and increasing penalties. They say no to a criminal offence for an employer who deliberately steals their workers' wages. The Coalition won't even criminalise employers who deliberately steal wages from their workers. They say no to casuals having a chance of becoming permanent workers. And they say no to closing the loophole that mean the agreed pay rates in an enterprise agreement can be undercut using labour hire.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Wong.
Thank you. I ask that further questions be placed on notice, and I